Hey everybody, Alex Smart here. These are 10 UCI rules and regulations you didn't know until you watched the 2017 Tour de France. I haven't decided how I want to say that. Tour de France, Tour de France, Tour de France, 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 Tour de France, Tour de France, France. So the first rule you didn't know is you're not allowed to take water at the end, near the end of a race, which, what? You're not allowed to get water. These guys are working so hard. This is one of the hardest endurance sports in the world, and they're not allowed to drink water or take water. This is absurd. Now, the problem I have with this rule, and the thing that we learned this year, is it only applies to people that the commissaires don't like. So, Rigoberto Urán, George Bennett, and I don't know how to say this guy's name, Sergei Powell's or Serge Powell's, I don't know. Now, Urán, this guy's doing some questionable things. He supposedly got the water from a marketing guy that worked for his team. Now, if you believe that, fine. The thing is, as soon as they found out that Aru and a Frenchman also did this, there was video footage of this, then all of a sudden they decided to drop the penalty. So the next rule you didn't know until the 2017 Tour de France is you're actually allowed apparently to hold on to a vehicle in the toughest part of the stage at the end and be fresh for a sprint. Now this is again our boy Rigoberto Urán, who had a mechanical. Now he may have had a problem, I don't know, but he's sitting there relaxing on this tough part of a climb right before the finish. By the way, ends up winning the stage while his mechanic is illegally hanging out of the window fixing his derailleur when every other rider would have to stop and get a new bike, whatever. So total BS. There's a rule that says 2.4.027, no equipment for the rider shall be prepared or held ready outside the following vehicle, meaning the vehicle that's following, but also persons riding in vehicles shall not reach or lean out. This guy was way out there grabbing the derailleur. Urán's just sitting there chilling on the car. So again, where's the consistency? You're not allowed to pass the yellow jersey or attack the yellow jersey when they're having a mechanical. Now, you can tell by my tone of voice, I really think this is BS. I don't know any other sport where you have to be gentlemanly to someone who's beating you. I mean, if you listen to any interviews with Larry Bird, he's like, we competed. Magic Johnson and I competed, and no one's going to wait for someone to tie their shoe or any of this crap. If it is a law or a rule, you know, like with soccer, someone gets injured, someone has a problem, they stop the gameplay, you know, and then there's a referee that stops it. It's a written rule. So fine, if you want to say no one can attack the yellow jersey, write the rule down, have everyone follow it, make it a rule. I understand you don't want to win that way, but there's lots of things that happen. I think if you want to have this unwritten rule, then write it down and say no one's allowed to attack the yellow jersey. But don't leave it up to the peloton to decide. That's ridiculous, to leave a rule up to the riders to decide. So I don't know. That's just my take on that. Another thing that you learned in the 2017 Tour de France is about level crossings. Now, for those of you that are not in the EU, level crossing is a railroad crossing. You are not allowed to cut through it, which kind of makes sense, but there's specific rules about if you're in a breakaway, what happens. So, for example, this actually came up, by the way, because of Paris-Roubaix in 2016, I believe. There was a bunch of riders that went through while it was closing, and they said, hey, you know, it wasn't completely closed, and then there were still some more that were going through while it was closed, and no one really got penalized, and the group was basically split. So there was a lot of complaints about that, so they changed the rule to make it more specific. So this is what it says now. 2.3.034, it shall be strictly forbidden to cross level crossings when the barrier is down or closing, the warning signals ringing or flashing. Those last specifications are the ones they added. Apart from risking the penalty for such an offense as provided by law, offending riders shall be eliminated from the competition by the commissaires. Now, what I love about this is they're actually going to also give them a traffic ticket. So you get a ticket and you get eliminated from the race, which I don't know, I think it's hilarious. Now, what I was mentioning before about the breakaway is, depending on how far ahead the breakaway is, depends on what they do. So if the breakaway is more than 30 seconds ahead, and they're caught by the peloton because of the level crossing, then they reestablish the gap. But if there's less than 30 seconds in the breakaway and they're caught because of the level crossing, then they actually just consider it a race incident, and sorry, you're back in the peloton. But anyway, this is something I feel like we learned because the race announcers were talking about this. They were talking about how, I think maybe it was one of the breakaways that was getting pulled back in, and they're like, oh yeah, at this point you're just hoping for a level crossing or something. There is a rule that says you cannot change your line when in the middle of a sprint. So the rule is 2.3.036. Riders shall be strictly forbidden to deviate from the lane they selected when launching into the sprint, and in so doing endangering others. So the reason why, of course, this is such a hot topic is because our boy the Frenchman, Arnaud Démare, completely broke this rule in the stage that caused Sagan and Cavendish to collide. Now, you can say that Sagan elbowed, and that was more of an offense, that was endangering others, and Arnaud Démare was really just not obeying the first part of the law, but they all broke this rule. And, you know, you could argue that Sagan had nowhere to go. Now, this is a debate, and people argue other ways. They say, no, he was trying to muscle him out and this and that. So whatever you think, the bottom line is they all broke this law. I really believe the bottom line is they wanted press, they wanted publicity. Related to this, another rule we learned from the 2017 Tour de France is punching someone in the face is okay. So you're not allowed to kind of elbow someone to hold yourself up, but you're allowed to punch someone in the face. Just because he didn't go down like Cavendish did doesn't mean that you shouldn't punish it equally. You know, the consequences should not dictate whether or not the action is punished. It should be the action. You know, I mean, if you're in another sport, if you're in basketball and someone fouls someone, it doesn't matter if they break their nose or they just whine a little bit. They still have to be called for the foul. So, you know, they really need to get way more consistent with some of these calls. Now, number 7 thing you didn't know is about time trialing. This one's a little less innocuous, or a little more innocuous, where there's actually specific procedures. Now, I'm going to put these 7 and 8 I'm going to put together because the rules about time trialing talk about, you know, how you're allowed to interact when you pass someone. They have time intervals and time trials, and you know, sometimes stronger riders will pass someone. Now, obviously, you're not allowed to draft on that person, but one of the key numbers is 25 meters distance between you and the other rider. Now, the interesting thing is that the number 8 thing you didn't know about UCI rules until the 2017 Tour de France is I see all these people, and this has always been the case, but you see them following these support vehicles. So you're not allowed to draft in a time trial, and the distance is 25 meters, but the support vehicle only has to be 10 meters away. So this is another thing that they just don't control, that, you know, you see vehicles all the time, you know, right next to riders, they're right behind them a lot of times. So I don't know why some of these things go unnoticed, but, you know, that's the state of the referees, I guess. Let's do a fun one here. So 2.4.029, megaphones or loud hailers may be used. So I love the idea that they have to make a rule that megaphones are allowed. I'm assuming they mean support vehicle. Now, maybe this is the next step for Contador, you know, his famous pink whistle incident where he was going downhill blowing a pink whistle to get fans out of the way. Maybe the next step for him is a megaphone, and by UCI rules, he would be perfectly loud. I would love to see Contador get a pink megaphone. I think that's the next step for him. Let's talk about the 10th rule that you didn't know until the 2017 Tour de France. UCI rules and regulations. You are actually allowed, according to the UCI, to be inconsistent if it's good for press and good for publicity. You know, this is the whole Sagan thing. I really think they disqualified Sagan mostly to make a statement, to get press, to get everyone energized and arguing. You know, let's try to regulate this to the point where things are fair for people who want to play fair. So 10 things you didn't know about UCI rules and regulations until the 2017 Tour de France. I hope you're enjoying this tour. It's been amazing. It's been lots of fun. It's so close. I can't believe how close this is. So many great riders coming up. I feel like we're seeing a new generation of riders coming in, and that's exciting. You know, you have Fabio Aru, who I have high hopes for. Maybe he'll have a stronger team next time. I hope he still pulls it off this time, but, you know, Chris Froome's definitely the favorite with his team. And, you know, you have Uran, who's kind of using his own tactics to come up the ranks. You have Bardet, who's making a name for himself. All these great things happening. So hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're catching up on what's happening if you haven't been. And I'm excited. I'm pumped. And it's really exciting to watch the chess game on wheels unfold in front of us. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.